And Anthony, you did bring us another guest this week. This is 2 weeks in a row, so why don't you introduce our guest we've got with us this week?
Once again, I suckle at the teat of Action Lab. I'm a mark for that goddamn company. They put out some good stuff, and I saw an advertisement for a book about basically a grown-up Calvin and Hobbes living in Sin City, and just thought it was a goddamn spectacular idea. And then the writer contacted me and asked about being on the show. So we got David with us, and I'm not even going to try to say your last name because I know I'll fuck it up.
Oh, hi, I'm David Pepose, and thanks for having me, you guys.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and your book's pretty awesome. We all got a chance to read it because you sent Anthony a preview issue, and then he's like, you guys need to read this so we can talk smart about it. And we went, wait, we have to talk smart about something? This might be a problem.
Yeah, as smart as we can do.
Well, no, thank you guys. I'm glad you guys like the book.
I am a huge Calvin and Hobbes fan, which I don't know if you could see the giant tattoo that I have.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
So I was quite intrigued with the book. And now I can't wait for issue 2, which I'm going to have to wait for, of course.
Well, okay. I mean, listen, now you guys have to do me the favor. Tell me what you thought.
I
really liked it.
Yeah, I like the dark twist on Calvin and Hobbes. Like, you open it up, and the first panel is like, oh, it's Calvin and Hobbes kind of thing. This is cool. And then you're like, oh, no, this is dark.
This is a bit bloodier than Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, we definitely, and I don't think this is a spoiler. People can see this on our very first preview page. But, we wanted to sort of lull people into, I guess, a false sense of security, sort of give them something a little bit familiar. And then suddenly just swerve into an entirely different direction. So yeah, I mean that's part of the fun of this book is we get to play with a lot of very familiar iconography. Everybody kind of has that idea of Calvin and Hobbes in their head. They have the wagon, they have the stuffed animal, they have kind of the high-strung mom, and that familiarity only lasts a little bit before we kind of turn everything on its ear.
Exactly. What I really loved was how the homage extended to the flashbacks, where you made the flashback sequences actually look like panels from the original Calvin and Hobbes comic. The bully, the school teacher, the girl that Calvin has a crush on. All of those flashbacks were fantastic.
Well, thank you. Jorge Santiago Jr. is he's my artist and partner on this. He's a beast. I said very early on, I was like, I really want these flashbacks to look a lot like Calvin and Hobbes. Also, just so we can shift things up visually a bit. And man, did he knock that out of the park. I feel like Locke as a kid he's very adorable for being such a shitty kid.
That's the best way of putting it too.
But no, he just knocked it out. And really, that was something we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure we wore our influences on our sleeve. And so we don't shy away from our inspirations at all. And you'll see there is a lot. That's only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to our Calvin and Hobbes style flashbacks. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say issue 2 has a bunch. Issue 3 really dives into it very, very deeply.
Interesting. I really like the God damn it.
So the Mrs.
I
Wormwood,
derailed like halfway through that thought.
she really does. And,
I'm actually a professional. I'm good at what I do.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
Guys, my frame is backwards when I tried to share that properly. So if you guys are watching on the live stream right now, everything is backwards because I hit the wrong buttons. But I was trying to share some artwork from it. I'll fix that and come back in here in a second. But one of the things I really did like was the Mrs. Wormwood analog, his elementary school teacher when he goes back to meet her in the future.
Principal Scabtree.
Yeah. And you're just sitting there and you're like, ooh, she's had a rough go of it, but she's still kind of a bitch.
Jorge, I remember he posted a picture of Principal Scabtree when he was first drawing her out, and I was like, oh man, she looks like she's like a patch of hard road. Like that, she has seen some shit.
She looks like she needs a pack of Marlboros at the same time too, because I always hear like a smoker's voice whenever I think of her in the comics.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, she definitely she's a real hard ass in this, and we definitely didn't want to pass up the chance to sort of edge up and age up any of these characters that we can get our hands on, and poor Principal Scabtree, She's a real piece of work.
Yeah, and I know. I'll tell you what because the whole concept is great, but what actually made me add it to my poll list was that the snowman showed up. As soon as I saw the snowman, I'm done. I fucking love the snowman.
Yeah, that was a great little Easter egg in there. Like, oh yeah, the deranged killer snow goons. Here's a take on that.
It really was. It felt a lot like a checklist at certain points. I mean, before, when I first started working on the script, I wrote, I think, a few pages out, and I started just writing like notes where I was like, okay, like what are things that are very, very recognizably Calvin and Hobbes that if we did sort of a parody of this, people would expect for us to have it. And after a little bit, I said, okay, I got to put the script down. And I just started reading through all of my collections. I was like, okay, I have to get everything down. And the vast majority, I will say the one thing we didn't get in this series, which I deeply regret, but maybe if people like this, we'll do it in another one. We did not get the killer bike.
Okay.
You might see further on in the series where I tried to get the killer bike in and then realized it couldn't fit, and so I had to sub something else in for it. But one day I know where I'm going to fit the killer bike. I figured it out.
Nice. I love the
that'll be
killer
fantastic.
bike.
Oh wow! That was our Tumblr page there.
I can Google it the best of them sometimes.
There we go.
But yeah, no, I mean, the thing about Calvin Hobbes and Sin City, and Bill Watterson and Frank Miller, who, it's one of those things. I hope when people read this, they don't think we took Bill and Frank's name in vain. And they have these very distinct voices. And the thing that they have in common, they're very subversive, both Sin City and Calvin and Hobbes. And sort of really being able to key in on that subversive voice is kind of like what I think gives our book its humor and its heart, because it's very much it's in that buddy cop vein where you sort of have these two guys just kind of bickering and bantering back and forth, and that's like just as fun as the action to me, anyway. I think they have just. Well, thank you. But. Yeah, that's our secret sauce, I guess, our not so secret sauce.
And you can tell you guys come to it from a place of love of all of the source material in there, because it's we've only read up issue 1, but it's such a compelling story, and we get to the end of it, I'm like, I gotta wait. Oh, come on.
Yeah, it's a hell of a teaser for this issue.
Thank you. Well, that's the thing. I mean, listen, Jorge and I, we love Bill Watterson, and I can say this just from my personal background. Listen, regardless of sort of what you think of Frank Miller and his current output or his current politics, I mean, Frank Miller was the guy who made me realize that, real people like make these books. That was like, I remember reading Daredevil, the Man Without Fear as a kid. Blew me away. I think I was 8 years old and it just blew my damn mind. I was like, oh, there's like a voice to this, and like I get it. And I was like, I want to read more of this guy. And so I read, Dark Knight Returns. I read Year One. I read Sin City. I read 300. And so I feel like Frank Miller's forgotten more about how to make comics than I'll probably ever know.
That's fair.
And
that's fair for anyone, I think.
Yeah, pretty much anybody working today, that's fair.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things. I think that really kind of inspired me and Jorge to bring our A game to this book. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to let Frank down. If he ever gets the chance to read this book, I don't want him to think this is trash. I want him to think this is good trash. So,
well, if his opinion's anything like ours is, it's a wonderful read. I mean, 4-part miniseries, you definitely hit it off right off of issue 1.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's been a real labor of love. Somebody was asking me this actually the other day. I was looking through my Google email, and I wrote the first issue script in September of 2014.
Oh, wow.
So this has been like a long time coming. It took us 9 months just to get our pitch together. It actually, our big challenge was finding the right colorist for the book. We went through 3 different colorists. The first one wasn't a great fit. It wasn't the right colors for the right project. The second one just took my money and just vanished.
Ooh.
And yeah, I was displeased. And then we found Jason Smith through a referral from the lovely Taylor Esposito. And Jason Smith is fantastic. Love him to death. Just such a great team player. And the moment he took Jorge's pages, I don't think I had any edits for him for those pitch pages. I was just like, oh. And those are actually, I mean, those the first 6 pages of the book, which is our preview pages. That's what Action Lab saw. Those were our pitch pages. And I was just like, okay, we got the guy. And it was so funny because we shopped the book around, and I sent it to Action Lab. And keep in mind, this has taken 9 months from getting the first script done to actually having a pitch ready. And they emailed me in like an hour. They're like, when can you get this book done? I was like, oh.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine what that feeling would be like after that long. Be like, that quick a turnaround. You're like, what? Really? This is awesome.
You know what? It was one of those things. I remember I was at work, and I stayed late at work to work on the pitch because my work computer had Adobe Acrobat. And I remember it was like, oh yeah, I'll sit here, extra hour, send this out. And then, yeah, like I was just catching up on some extra work, and I see this email hit. And I'm like, what's going on? So we signed around Christmas of 2015. And it took us about 10 months to do the next 4 issues. It was just kind of, at that point, we were off to the races. I was like, okay, we have got to do this. We got to do it right. And thankfully, I work with a great team who really kind of knocked everything out of the park. I mean, Jorge is, I can't even say enough good things about him. He's fantastic. And Jason is fantastic. My letterer, Colin Bell, I've known for years, actually used to write for me over at Newsarama. And then Mon House and Joe Mulvey are variant cover artists who, they're fantastic. They are fantastic. And Mon's actually going to be doing variant covers for all 4 of our issues.
Ooh,
so,
nice.
He showed me his second cover. Third cover's almost done. And it's kind of a pinch me moment talking about all this.
Oh, no doubt. I can't even imagine.
Like I apologize. I know I'm rambling. I still can't believe that this thing's actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine the feeling when you get those first 6 preview pages back. I mean, what was it like for you to see what your thoughts were, your ideas put to drawings and things like that, and all the colors? What was it running through your head when you saw all that?
Oh man, I mean, it was. I remember very clearly when we got our first 6 pages from Jorge because I live in California now. I live in Los Angeles, and my girlfriend and I had actually taken a trip the year before we moved out here to sort of scope the place out, see how we felt about it. And we got those first 6 pages on the flight back.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was like, oh, Christmas came early. These are fantastic. And, Jorge, he's such a humble guy. He does not give himself enough credit, literally on anything. And I keep telling him, like, you're going to be a superstar. You're going to be the next big thing. And I remember he was like, well, I don't know how I feel about these pages. And he sent them to me. I'm like, dude, these are amazing pages.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
They're gorgeous pages. And I remember I was so excited to get those pages. And then I felt the same way again once Jason turned in the color pages. Even, I have to say, when we got the designs back from Jorge, because those designs are really all him. He actually, when I envisioned this book, I sort of had this Frank Miller vibe in my head. And, like people like Marv or Callahan, these big, beefy kind of guys. And I figured, it's going to be this big, beefy sort of Calvin analog. And it was going to be this scrawny Hobbs kind of sidekick. And I remember when Jorge turned in his character designs and he flipped it. And I was like, oh, no, you did it. Like, that's much better. Because it sort of plays up this idea that our tagline is his partner's imaginary, but the danger's all real. And that's something that every scene that I wrote, I tried to take this into consideration is just because Locke thinks he's not alone doesn't mean he's not alone. And that means there's only one guy in that room who's going to take a punch. And so having him be a little bit scrawnier and lankier, that means he has to fight some much bigger and stronger people. And that means not only does the danger increase, but that also means he can get a little more vicious, as you guys see at the end of the first issue.
Yeah, it gets a little vicious.
Yes.
And I was going to ask, because the Sin City influence has been mentioned, but I'm wondering if you or Jorge are big fans of Black Sad.
Yeah, I love Black Sad. It was one of those things we wanted to make absolutely sure that Spencer did not seem too much like Black Sad, because I know, like he's the more famous cat detective in comics these days. And so in our preview pages, you'll see like they're in darkness, so he can look a little Black Sad-ish. But we made sure Spencer is all blue and he's got a button for an eye. And that was also a nice reminder that he's a doll in real life. And also, actually, one of our early reviews said this, and I hadn't thought of it this way, but I agree now that they said it, is that it also makes Spencer really pop off the page. He's sort of that splash of blue where there is no other blue. And and I love the way Jorge really bulked him up as an adult. And it fits because he's always he serves as Locke's protector. He's his animal instinct, his intuition as a cop comes down to all these clues that Spencer can pick up for him using his keen animal senses. And he's he's his protector. He's always been his protector. And that's really, I think, like the human heart that beats under our detective story is, well, what got him to that point? Like, what sort of upbringing would cause a kid to have to hallucinate their own best friend? And as you see from the very first page, and it's a running theme through the book, anybody who should have protected this kid didn't. And in fact, they failed miserably. In fact, they even probably harmed him to his great detriment. And that's sort of the theme of our book, is everybody has scars. But what do we do with them? Are we defined by them? Can we overcome them? We always sort of go back to our painful roots.
Sorry, you kind of went silent on us for a second there.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So we had to. That's why we all paused for a second.
We were all processing in our minds.
Oh no! And I was like, am I going anywhere with this? And then I was like, I'm rambling. I'll just let it go.
No, you're good. It was more.
Sorry, my programming failed for a second.
So we everything came through very well until the very last 5 seconds, and it was all Cylon, and we were like,
this is literally like the third podcast I've ever done. So I'm still finding my feet. Yeah, so let's everybody just pretend that I stuck the landing at the end of that speech.
Beautiful.
A tear's coming down to my eye. I can tell you that.
So we've got some folks in the chat room that have been following along with things, and one of our frequent guys in the chat room is the Draftsman. Is his internet handle, and he said it's been amazing to see how our creative DNA gets shaped by Calvin and Hobbes. I mean, we're not going to get more out of Bill Watterson, but I think it puts the challenge back on us to create that little piece of that work from a child. And I think you've gotten a great grasp of Bill Watterson's world and kind of put your own twist on it. It's been great to read.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the Draftsman. I mean, it's one of those things. Listen, I wrote about comics for many years before I actually decided to write a comic of my own. I was the reviews editor of Newsarama for many years, and the thing is I at least my evolution from sort of journalist to creator, it was sort of, and actually even going further than that, I got my start as an intern and temp over at DC Comics, and it's sort of over the last 8 or 9 years since I did that internship, I've always sort of been thinking, how am I going to contribute to this industry? I've loved comics since I was a kid. I can immediately imagine the first 4 Marvel books that my mother gave me as a kid, and it's sort of you love the industry, and you know the history, and the tropes, and how do you give back to something like that? And Spencer and Locke actually came to being because I decided one day, I said I want to write a comic. I had done short comics of my own, just sort of, scripts, 6-page scripts that are never going to see the light of day. You can't force me to show them. They're terrible. But I had said, I want to write a comic, and I want to write a comic that is for comics fans, by comics fans, that sort of embrace the unique storytelling toolbox that only comics have. Things like panel layouts, things like page turns, things like that very uniquely theatrical kind of visuals that comics can get away with that like film and television really can't. And shifting art styles. And it's funny that you guys were talking about the difference between sort of our more grittier present day scenes and our sort of more cutesy flashbacks. Jorge really, we wanted to make sure every issue kind of shifts things up visually. And so every issue has something very cool and very visual to it that sort of Jorge could flex his muscles in different ways. And to that end, I was sort of thinking, okay, I really like mashup culture. I really like remixes, and I was thinking to myself, maybe I'd age up a children's property, sort of take an adult spin on it. And I remember I was walking, I used to live in New York, and I remember I was walking back home from work one day, and I was flipping through Facebook, and I saw a remixed Calvin and Hobbes strip. And it was, Calvin was just doing homework with Hobbes, and Hobbes was like, hey, do you want to go outside and play? Calvin's like, nah, mom put me on some new medication. It's really been helping my focus. I really need to do my homework. And Hobbes is like, really? And he's like, yeah, seriously, I got to go do my homework. I can't talk right now. And the last panel is just Calvin doing homework, sitting next to this lifeless doll.
That's so sad.
That's sad as shit.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
You know why that's sad?
Calvin.
Because it's real life.
I cackled like an idiot. And then after a little bit, I kind of thought, well, yeah, that's gotta be what's going on. Hobbes is too realistic and too fully formed to be just somebody's imagination. There's something going on underneath the surface. And like I said, I'm a huge Frank Miller fan. And so I just had this image in my head suddenly of this cop, beat up and bleeding in the rain, just grinning like a maniac, and he's holding a stuffed animal. And that's when I was like, oh, I got it. Okay, I got it. And so, I looked up all sorts of philosopher names until I found two that kind of clicked together, like Spencer and Locke. And then I wrote, and I think we finished that first script in a week.
Wow, talk about getting inspired quick then.
It was they really kind of came fully formed, and it's only because both Frank Miller and Bill Watterson they create these characters where it's okay to get in their heads, and it's okay to sort of play around with their voices. And I've got so many pages of thrown out dialogue of Spencer and Locke, and I feel I'm sure anybody who was sitting next to my office was like, why is this guy just muttering to himself in random voices? But I'm like, oh no, just get into their heads a little bit. And yeah, now they're my boys. I love them. I want to tell all sorts of stories with them. So I hope people read it, because we've got at least 2 more arcs that I would love to tell.
That's great.
So
the first issue really does read like a love letter to Calvin and Hobbes and to Sin City and all that. So I hope that you're able to continue on, because it's really good.
I think people
Thank
are going to
very much.
I think people are going to fall in love with issue 1, and I sure as hell hope that means we're going to get more of those arcs that you've just been teasing us with, that you said you had more plans. I'm sitting here going, I can't wait to read more. Like I said earlier, I'm sitting here going, oh man, I've already read issue 1, which means I got to wait 2 months till I can read issue 2.
It's God, you're killing me. It's one of those things I won't spoil anything too much for what I would consider a second arc, only to say that there's a much wider universe out there for Spencer and Locke to inhabit. And I without giving too much away, the second arc would be about consequences.
Okay.
So would we finally get, so my favorite thing on Calvin and Hobbes is Spaceman Spiff. So
without giving too much away, yes.
Yay!
I think they just gave it all away.
Of course, I would not forget about Spaceman and I will not get into the whys and wherefores of how we get to Spaceman. Suffice to say, it's my favorite part of the entire series.
Oh, I can't wait.
Nice.
Nice.
See, I showed off this part of the tattoo, which is like Calvin and Hobbes staring off into the galaxy. But what's going to be coming in from behind is Spaceman Spiff, like into the Death Star, because I've got the Death Star up at the top here. So,
Well,
I'm so excited.
Just keep an eye out for issue 3. That's all I'll say.
Ooh.
Yay!
Nice.
So issue 1 that drops in March, correct? With Action Labs.
It drops in April. It'll drop April 26th, the week before Free Comic Book Day. And
Good
yeah,
timing.
you guys, it was fantastic timing. I couldn't have asked for better timing, actually. And we're available for pre-order. Our Jorge's main cover is $3.99. The pre-order code is Feb171047. And then we have Mon House's variant cover, which is $4.99. It's more of a realistic take. It's Feb171048. And then we have Joe Mulvey's cover, which is more cartoony. And that actually, we had a recolored version that debuted at New York Comic Con. And that's $4.99 as well. It's Feb171049.
That's fantastic. I know I'll be going down to my local comic book shop later this week to pick up stuff, and I'll be going, yeah, add this, pick up some of these. You're going to want them in store. My local shop has a pretty good relationship with Action Labs. So they're probably already on top of it because they love
That's
a lot of stuff
fantastic.
coming out of there.
Well, listen, I've been calling comic shops day in and day out, and we've been getting great reaction from our retailer partners. And seriously, like they're the people like you and people like our retailer friends. They're the difference between getting an indie book in people's hands and letting it go under the radar. So we appreciate all your support, and just tell your friends. That's all we can ask.
Well, I'm really glad that you were able to join us today to tell us about it and also give us a little taste of what's to come, because like I said earlier, we all read it and I think we're all going, damn, I want more.
Well, listen, I want more too. I know these characters now inside and out. I know how they live. I know how they die. Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe one day we'll get to that point. I don't know. But for now, I'm just excited to see people get to meet these guys that have been in my head for so long.
So everyone,
I love the button eye too. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. So everyone who's watching live or listening, it's a great touch. But everyone who's watching live or listening at a later date, go check out this book, Spencer and Locke. You can go find it. Follow David on Twitter and follow at Spencer and Locke on Twitter. You can find out a lot more about it. And seriously, go to your local shop. Be like, I want this book. You won't regret it. I promise you.
Yeah, now we've just been teased for like we have to wait for like 4 months until we can actually get it.
Totally worth it though.
It is. And Dressman says in the chat room, he says, this guy is really good. He has really good idea, and I like the fact that he's able to track his development and explain his process. So
thank you. I'm a big process nerd, so
shut up, Willie. Make fun of me. I said process.
David, I'm glad you come and join us and talk about this book coming out soon today. We're going to continue and do the rest of our stuff, which is running down some nerd news. You're welcome to hang with us if you want after this. It's up to you.
Thank you.
I didn't know if you had any
Don't
other
forget
stuff
to make fun of
this
us.
morning. Yeah, and feel free to make fun of us.
Oh yeah, that's a given. Just do
no.
that. It's all right.
No, thank you. I have to run actually, but thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, I mean, seriously, it's been a labor of love. So thank you guys for helping us share it.
Well, thank you so much.
We'll
for
have
coming.
to have you come back on right before, like,
Absolutely.
right before you guys launch.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because after that, you'll be too famous to come on our little show.
No way, you guys. No way.
Yeah, if you want us to preview the rest of the series, I mean, I guess we could.
Absolutely, you guys. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for joining
Thanks
us,
for
David.
coming on.
Best of luck.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your show, you guys.
All right, guys, that was an awesome interview we got to have there. Seriously, go check out this book. We were lucky enough to get to read issue 1 already, which we talked about. You guys probably picked up on that. Very much well worth your time. If you loved any of those original things, like Calvin and Hobbes and Frank Miller influenced work, you're going to love it. Go and check it out. But hey, we have a little thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
And I was gonna say, and we know listeners aren't gonna remember the codes that David read off, which he's just, he knows the preview codes. Go to your local comic book store; they'll have the code in the previews, and you can go through and pick whichever cover you'll want, because they'll have a different code for each cover, but they'll have those in the books. You don't need to remember those codes.
It is 47, 48, and 49 if you need to know the last the last 2 of each.
Yeah. But they'll be in the Action Lab section in previews, which is alphabetical for the smaller independent companies.
Yep.
So not hard to find in the previews.
So
I will tell you, it's the only comic book I've read this year.
Ooh, that's a distinct honor coming from
There you
one
go.
Willie Nelson.
There you go.
So all that being said, it's probably about time we start wrapping into the rest of the stuff that makes up the show, which means I guess it's time for News of the Week. Thanks for listening to this brand new episode of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back next Sunday live at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central over at live.atgnpodcast.com, channel 3 of the Alpha Geek radio app, and over at our network home at gonnageek.com/live. If you have any feedback for the show, please contact us atgnpodcast@gonnageek.com, on our hotline number at 304-806-ATGN, or even better, go to Twitter and send us a message at ATGN Podcast. The music you've heard in this show is produced by Kevin MacLeod and can be found at incompetech.com.